actually Ginger from Asia SF.
And we are back from politics to what is the new year going to bring for us. And one of the things it's going to bring for us is an incredible stage performance featuring Marga Gomez and our next guest, Natasha Muse. Welcome.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Now, we were chatting before the cameras went on. Natasha Muse is your stage name, your real name, or who is Natasha Muse?
Well, Natasha Muse is my real name now. I had to change it to that a few years back. Well, like almost 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
Ginger is my stage name from Asia SF.
Now,
but when I do stand-up comedy, it's just Natasha Muse.
Natasha Muse.
So I was going to get a third stage name, but I thought that might be a little bit
confusing.
Too confusing.
When I hear the name Ginger in relation to performance, I think of, you're not old enough to remember, but when I was a boy, there was that wonderful show, Gilligan's Island.
Oh, yeah, no.
And Ginger Grant was the glamorous star, clearly modeled after Marilyn Monroe. Is that where you got your stage name? Or is there a little bit of Ginger Grant in you?
There is a little bit, although I think off stage I'm a lot more like Marianne.
Ah,
yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm trying to get those two different parts of me to kind of mash up all the time. But
now, what do we see when we see Natasha Muse on stage as a comedian? Is it more Ginger Grant or is it more Marianne?
75% Ginger and like 25%
Yeah, I mean, you got the
Marianne.
Ginger thing going on now.
Yeah, right.
Now, how did your life change from New Hampshire to California to getting on stage at Asia SF? Tell us about your journey.
Wow. So I lived in New Hampshire for a little bit, and then I needed to move to a city, so I started off with Boston, which is a nice little starter city, and then I realized I needed to make a really big change in my life, both geographically and dealing with being transsexual, and I figured San Francisco was the place to do it.
What was it like growing up in New Hampshire, dealing with issues of gender identity?
You know, it was just not even on the table to even entertain those thoughts for myself. So
with your family, and has your family been supportive? Or?
They have been, but it took a lot of me kind of warming them up to the idea. So, but I'm an only child, so I felt like that was like my card I could deal.
Yeah, yeah. When you go on stage now, are you ever surprised at the journey that you've been on? I mean, i.e., would you be on stage now had you not gone through what you've been through personally in your life?
Yeah, I think about that sometimes because I feel like usually being transsexual has been just kind of causing a lot of problems, but at the same time I feel like it's let me explore this other part of myself as a performer. And I don't think I would have ever been inspired to even leave New Hampshire, let alone come out here to San Francisco if I hadn't had to, deal with that. And so, and then being transsexual also led to me being a performer at Asia SF, which of course you kind of have to, you have to be a gender illusionist of some sort to perform there. So that act, in a weird way, being transsexual helped me kind of break out of my own shell, being shy.
Well, in a sense, I've always thought that stand-up comics, comedians, are the most daring of performing artists. I was always taught that theater is the revelation of private truth in a public place. And I've always taken that to be a great definition for any art.
Yeah.
But more than most art forms, performance forms, standing up there on a stage in front of a crowd that may or may not like you, get you, or even think you're funny that night, talk about letting it all hang out. Does it ever scare you?
Yeah, yeah. And I think if you're not scared, then you're not really paying attention. Or, I think being a little nervous shows that you care about what you're about to do, because you are exposing part of who you are to an audience. I think even if you're not, what you're talking about is silly, I feel like if it's coming from a place that's genuine, you need to have that in order for people to connect with what you're doing on stage.
What was the first time you were on stage as a comedian? Was it professional? Was it in front of a group of friends and you said, wow, I kind of like this?
Well, my first time on stage was just lip syncing at Asia SF, and I'm really glad that they hired me, and I feel like I don't think I was that good at first. I think I kind of got by on being kind of cute and being, young and fitting the being transsexual, fitting the bill in that way, and it was, for me, it was just being on stage and getting used to people looking at me, and it was fun, but it was absolutely terrifying for me, and I love comedy, but it took a while for that love of comedy and being a performer to actually kind of come together, where I started being funny on stage, and it just really, it was really exciting when I realized that I could, start interjecting my sense of humor on stage, and I kept doing that more and more at Asia SF.
And who is who's the person you admire when you see them on stage? Is it like a Kathy Griffin? Is it someone else? Is it someone that you think, wow, I kind of want to be like them?
Actually, it's funny because growing up, I would just watch televised stand-up, and I always enjoyed it. Saturday Night Live and all those funny shows and whatnot. But it wasn't until I started working at Asia SF and they had a special buyout, and Marga was the first live comedian I ever saw in my life. And when I saw what she was doing on our stage, I was like, wow, you could do that too. And I enjoyed what I was doing there, but I saw her, and it was like.
And that was because she was using so much of her personal experience in her act.
And it just to me, it just seemed so much more dynamic than what I was doing.
Now, on New Year's Eve, 2010 and 2011, you're going to be on stage opening for Marga at the Victoria in San Francisco. What are we going to see? What's your act like?
Well,
I was
there last year too, and last year I just kind of talked about the kind of tranny 101, I call it, the basics about being transsexual, and like the different kind of questions people ask you, and if that's my real name, and personal questions, and just.
Does that bother you? Is that difficult sometimes, separating your life as an artist and just as a person who has gone through a transition, which to a lot of people, even in the LGBT community, is still something that we continue to educate ourselves around?
Yeah.
Is when you're on stage, do you feel sometimes like, hi, I'm here as Natasha, the comedian, or I'm here as Natasha, the activist for transgender equality?
I think I'm only an activist as much as I'm just as much as I'm open about who I am in pretty much every, all the aspects of my life. I mean, I don't wear a T-shirt that says it, but I think people maybe are disappointed that I'm not quite as funny off stage as I am on stage, because I feel because I'm not one of those people that's always cracking jokes, and I mean I am, but it's not quite the same persona. I feel like it's me, but amplified on stage, where I don't feel bad about talking for minutes and minutes on end, not letting other people speak, and really kind of letting loose with what I want to think about. When I'm on stage, it's much more kind of pulled back and reserved. But I feel like it's still me. I don't feel like there's any sort of, I don't try to, it's not like I'm putting on a persona.
It is who you are.
It is who I am. It's just when I'm on stage, it's more of it's more put through a prism in a sense, where it's just amplified.
And if someone wants to learn more about your work, where do they go online?
I'm at natashamuse.com.
natashamuse.com.
Yep.
And tell us about the show at the Victoria is going to be on New Year's Eve, and you're opening for Marga.
Yeah, and it's going to be me and this other great local comedian named Casey Lai. And the two of us are going to be opening up for her. There's 2 different shows and on that same night. And we do as if it were midnight each time. We do that.
Well, we'll see you there. Hopefully I'll spend my New Year with you.
Yeah, it looks like fun.
Thank you. You've been watching 10%. I'm David Perry for Natasha Muse and all our guests. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.